Hello. Now we are going to talk about how to make the iterable from the generator. As we already know that generators are nothing but the iterators. So if the iterator value or if the generator value comes to the last, right, it becomes exhausted. So basically it just throw the error of the stop iterations, right? So sometimes we want to create the generator, or like here we have already discussed that how to create the iterator, how to make the iterator as an iterable object. So the same way we can also create or make the generator as an iterable object, right? So but before that, so again for that we'll have to implement the class that implement the iterable protocols. That means that implement the iter protocol, it like that will have the iter method. But let's first simply create the simple generator which generate the square value of the n numbers, right? So here we have these functions. This is the square gen. We can now create the generator. Here we are creating the generator. Sq holds the generator object. Now when we take the loop, this will give you all the value. Then when we take the next of Sq, this will be exhausted because now there is nothing to be printed, right? So now we'll have the stop iterations. Now to restart the iteration, we'll again have to create the new instance of the object, right? So here we are again creating the new instance of the generator. Again, now we can take this in a loop. So these things we know, right? We cannot, without creating the object, we cannot just take this in a loop again, right? So now what we can do is now we can create the iterable. For that, we have to implement the square class. Like we have to implement the class. So here we have the square class. Now we have the iter method. In the iter method, we are returning the square gen. So we are returning this generator. So iter method return the generator object, right? This is what we have implemented. Let's do this. Now here let's create the object of the class, and now let's run the for loop. Now we're getting the output. We can again do that. There is no problem with that. So now we have created a generator as an iterable object, right? We can also put all this code together. Like here we have the square class, we have the square gen, and then we have this iter method. Remember here we are using the static method decorator, right? We'll learn about the static method decorator later on, right? But again, this method is being used if we do not have to give a reference for object and the class. Like here in this method, we are not giving any reference for the object and the class, right? And now we are returning this square gen over here. Now let's run this. Now we can create the object. Now we can take the loop, right? Now this is how we can create the generator. We can convert generator into the iterable object, right? Now let's see what happens when we use a generator with the other generator. For that, let's consider this example. So here we are getting the square of n. We are creating the generator object, and now we are using the enumerate function. Now again, we know that enumerator is nothing but the generator class, or it's a generator type of object. Now in this enumerate, we are passing this object of generator. We are passing this instance of generator over here. This will give you the enum generator, right? Now we know that enumerate is the lazy. That means it does the lazy execution. That means it has not executed the SQ. But when we take the enumerate, or like when we call the next function, or when we take this enumerate function into the loop, then it will calculate the value. It has not calculated yet. So here what we are doing is now we are calling, now without calling enum, now we are calling the SQ generator over here. This will give you the first object. This will give you the second object. Now when we call the next of enum, now we are calling this object, right? Now let's see what value we are getting. We are getting 0, 4. We are not starting from 0. So the values are not starting from 0 and the 1, because we have already consumed 2 elements from this generator, right? And this generator has not aware of that. So it is giving the value from where the values are available. So the values are available from the 4. Again, we can also see the index is still 0, because for enum this is the first value, right? So this happens when you use the iterator, with the iterator. So we should not do that, right? And you should also know how, and now we know how to make the iterable from the generator object, right? Thank you very much.